Let's take a look at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 4, and let's see what the word of the Lord has to say to us in that verse. Verse 4 says, "And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." We're in Genesis 1 verse 6 now. Let me read that again, 1 verse 6. "And God said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day." Now I want you to notice something from this small passage of scripture here, is that all along through the rest of creation, we know that God saw the light, that it was good. And from the rest of the creation after the firmament, from this day forward, from day 3 on, everything that God creates, God sees as good. He sees the plant life as good. He sees the fish in the sea as good. He sees the great whales as good. He sees the fowls. He even sees the creepy, crawly things that go along the earth on the ground. He sees them as good. But you notice in this passage of scripture, in verse 6, where it talks in 6 and beyond, where it talks about this firmament, that God does not call the firmament good. He simply calls it heaven, and God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. But you notice he doesn't call the firmament good. The reason he does not call the firmament good is the same reason that he didn't call darkness as good, because the firmament does not last forever. Now darkness gets to exist until the end of times, when God gets rid of darkness then. But this firmament doesn't even make it out of the first book of the Bible. It doesn't even make it out of the first 10 chapters of the book of Genesis. Because in Genesis chapter 7 verse 11, in Noah's day, it says in the 600th year of Noah's life, I believe it says. Let's go there and look at it. It says, yes, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. You see, there is no water above our atmosphere right now, because it all fell through in Noah's day. The water above the atmosphere, the water above that firmament, that water moved from being above the firmament to right down here on this earth, and that's the water, that's the rain that drowned evil humanity. There is no water above our atmosphere now, because it all fell through due to man's sin. That's why men don't live to 6, 7, 8, 900 years today like they did back in the pre-flood days, because our God-given filtration system that surrounded this globe, it fell through due to man's sin. That's why men could live so long back in Noah's day. For about a century now, scientists have been experimenting with atmospheric conditions and magnetic polarization, magnetic conditions, in order to try to reproduce the conditions that existed before the flood. And in their experiments and in their trying to reproduce this, they have invented something. They've invented something called the hyperbolic chamber. Have you ever heard of the hyperbolic chamber? Have you ever had a loved one? Have you ever had a loved one go to and have treatments in a hyperbolic chamber? Doctors use hyperbolic chambers today to speed healing. What a coincidence. They reproduce the pre-flood days and helps to speed healing.